Calgary's economy is booming. Over 13% of the population are below the poverty line in a city that's maybe one of the wealthiest in the world. There's over 70,000 workers here in Calgary who make below a living wage, and a living wage is defined as the low-income cutoff at $12 per hour. 70,000, and 60% of them are women in a time of boom. Well, currently 5% of city employees do not make a living wage, so 682 employees will be directly affected. So we're hoping, again, their incomes will go up to $12 an hour. And even the employees who are at the poverty line right now with the city, their wages will be bumped up. The real plus of this are the city suppliers. The city has hundreds and hundreds of suppliers. All these businesses have employees. We want to make sure that all of these employees make a living wage. If these businesses want to do business with the city, this living wage policy will ensure that all of their employees get paid a living wage if they want to do business. So I think there's like just off the top of my head, there's cleaning staff, there's security guards, there's a lot of employees who are contracted out to do services for the city who do not get paid a living wage, and I think there'll be huge ramifications from that, positive ramifications. Well, thankfully in the United States, over 125 cities have already adopted a living wage policy, so there's a lot of research on what the realities are. A lot of people come in saying, oh, costs will go up by tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, in 1994, Baltimore was the first U.S. city to adopt a living wage policy. And there's dire predictions of job loss. There's dire predictions that it was going to cost too much. In reality, the costs for supply contracts went up 1.2%. It was actually less than the rate of inflation. And the reason why was because the wages were lifted, actually a lot more businesses bid on the contracts. There was a lot more competition for the contracts, and everyone knows if there's lots of competition, the price tends to go down. And the companies that are paying a living wage, they actually find a lot of efficiencies. The employee motivation goes higher, absentees lower, turnovers lower. There's a lot of benefits that employers see. So with those efficiencies and increased competition, the city's costs actually went down in relation to inflation. So I think that that's a huge boom. A lot of suppliers, they don't bid on contracts because they know, let's say the janitorial or cleaning contractor is paying their employees just the lowest possible wages. They don't even want to bid because they don't think they'll be able to win. Yet, if we level the playing field, a lot more bid. And it's interesting, the city's report on a living wage actually said suppliers will actually absorb 10% extra. So if they raise their wages 10% for their overall costs, business will actually eat those costs. And so you have to ask yourself, there's obviously pretty high profit margins, and what this does is it actually takes away the inflated profit margins to a competitive normal level. So I think there's a lot of win-wins here. The other big myth is job loss. Again, Calgary's economy is booming, but 89% of city suppliers already pay a living wage, and I think that's very positive. And let's say, for example, a city like Baltimore, they actually had no job loss, no reduction in hours for workers, and these, of course, were the complete opposite of the dire predictions. So again, we have to look at the research and say there's minimal job loss, usually none, no loss of hours. It's really a win for the employees, and we really have to ask ourselves, minimum wage used to be above the poverty line. In 1968, it was 17% above the poverty line. Even with the most recent increase of minimum wage up to $8.40, the minimum wage still leaves a full-time worker 30% below the poverty line. You have to ask yourself, what is the point of the minimum wage if it doesn't even get you to the poverty line? No worker should be in poverty. So really, if governments, the provincial government and the federal government aren't going to raise wages, our city should take leadership. The richest city in Canada take leadership and make sure all of their employees and employees of suppliers that they do business with get paid a living wage.